Hello everyone, my name is CalSounds, and today I want to show you how to make this simple bass thing that I made inside of Phase Plant. There's really not too much going on, just some volume movement and some movement with shaper table. And of course I got some post-processing happening over here. Added another shaper table, have a slice EQ, got a gain, and I have a limiter. And so for the sounds, I just got a triangle wave. And then for this layer sound, it's a sawtooth wave with some FM. And I have a filter on it. And then I have a noise layer to add some high end or like some more grit to the noise. But yeah, the first thing we're going to start off with here is the shaper table. So we're going to go ahead and make that shape and import it into shaper table. And so I didn't really do anything too crazy. I just have a open phase plan here, added a filter, and I pretty much just did this with the filter and exported it. So I'm going to go ahead and just record that, export it, and then import it into the shaper table. And so yeah, it's just a low pass filter. So I'm going to go ahead and record that. I'm going to come over here and double click this to boost the sound a little bit more. Perfect. Now I'm just going to export that and then import it into shaper table. Okay, so I got my phase plan open. I'm going to go ahead and grab shaper table. And then I'm going to import the audio file that we made. And then when you import it, it's going to look something like this. I'm looking at the wave table right now, and it looks pretty fine, so I think I'm just going to leave it as is, leave the settings alone, and just hit done. Okay, and that's the first step for the main sound. Okay, so now that we got the shaper table, we got the shaper table. That is interesting. Okay, so now that we got the shaper table out of the way, we're gonna go ahead and add the triangle wave, the first layer, and the noise layer. All right, so first thing, I'm just gonna add an analog group. Just call it bass, and then hit the triangle wave. Then I'm gonna add another new group and rename this. Actually, I'm just gonna rename it layer. And this has an analog as well. I went ahead and added a band pass filter, and then I added a high pass filter, and just did this. We're gonna be modulating this in a minute, but just for now, I'm just gonna set everything up. And then for the outputs, I'm going to hit envelope and send this to lane 2. And for the lanes, I'm gonna go ahead and send them all to lane 3. So lane 1 and 2 should be sent to 3. I'm going to go ahead and add another analog after the envelope. So it should look like this. And then for the harmonic, I'm going to set this to 3 and do some phase modulation to the layer analog. And I'm going to right click and I think I had it set to 92. So that should be good. Now we're going to add the noise layer. So we got the bass part. We got the first layer. I'm going to go ahead and add a new group and call this noise. I'm going to go ahead and add in a noise generator. Add a high pass filter. And then for the output, hit envelope. And then I'm going to go ahead and send it to lane 3. And I think I went ahead and also had a low pass filter on it. Something like this. So that's perfect. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and add 3 new groups on the bottom down here for the modulators. This one is going to be called noise. The second group is going to be called volume, and the third group is going to be called movement. Okay, and so for the noise group, I went ahead and added an LFO. We're just going to modulate the noise generator area. And so I'm going to turn up the rate pretty fast. And then I'm just going to go ahead and modulate the gain, turn this down, and then turn up the gain just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and turn up the cutoff a little bit more. That's perfect. Alright, sounds good. So I'm going to go ahead and close that because we are done with the noise modulation. And then for the second group, I'm actually going to leave that alone. I'm just going to add an LFO on here. Right click the arrow on the bottom left and hit always trigger from node on. Set this to off. and then hit synchronize and leave it at 4/16. We're going to come back to this once we get to the final processing of the patch. And now for movement, we're just going to add another LFO, right click the bottom left arrow, hit always trigger from node on, and then for the modulator, we're going to hit sustain. We're going to turn it to synchronize, and then turn this down to 2/16. And now we're going to modulate our layer generator. And I should also mention that I turned up the harmonic section here by 5, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that up. And then I'm just going to modulate the filter cutoff here, the bandpass. Actually, instead of synchronization, I think I'm going to turn it back to the free mode. I think I like the way that sounds better. Okay, and then we're also going to modulate the shaper table here. Alright, so I actually did turn it back to synchronization. I left it at 4/16. I did this kind of shape with the LFO, and for the modulation of the shaper table, I think I have it set to -45, and then the frame is at 176. So if you want to go ahead and copy those settings, you can. Or of course, as I always encourage you guys, just play around with the settings and mess around till you get the sound that you like best. And for the drive, I left alone, and I have the mix all the way up, so I didn't really mess with that. And then for the cutoff of the filter, it's at 439 Hertz, so if you want to copy that, you can. And the LFO is at +24 here, so yeah. And I'm actually going to mess with the cutoff as well of both of these. And of course, for the last thing here, I'm going to go ahead and add a gain and turn this down to -3 decibels. So -3. And I know the noise sounds pretty constant, but it'll have some movement once we add a gain for the post-processing. Okay, so now for the final process of the sound, I'm going to go ahead and close these up, and I'm going to open up the volume group. I'm going to go ahead and add a gain to lane 3, and instead of dB, I'm going to set it to percentage. Then I'm going to come over here to my LFO and make this kind of shape, and then I'm going to modulate the gain. I'm going to turn this all the way down, set this to 50, or right click and set to 50. Oh, another part I should mention is that the BPM is set to 170, so if you're like at 120 or like 130, there's going to be pretty drastic change with the speed. The only reason I did that was mainly because of the drum and bass beat that I made earlier. So yeah, if you want to set that to 170, you can. Alright, so like I said, come over here to the LFO, make this kind of shape. And actually, instead of turning the modulator off, alright, perfect. And then you can go ahead and mess around with the speed as well of the LFO. And I like it at 4/16, so I'm just going to leave it alone. Alright, and then I went ahead and added another shaper table. And instead of just making our own shape, I just chose a preset. I think I chose tension. So it's right here on the bottom right. And let's mess around with that. that sounds really cool. And I'm not going to do any movement with that. I'm just going to leave it at 140, or the frame set at 140. And I'm going to leave the settings as is, so I'm just going to leave that alone. Alright, the next thing that I did was added a slice EQ. So I'm going to add a high pass filter over here and dip it down a little bit. Kind of tame the low end a little bit. Alright, perfect. And then I added a gain snap-in and set it to -2 just to reduce the loudness of the overall sound. And then of course for the last thing that I did here was I just added a limiter. Okay, and so that's pretty much the sound. There's nothing really too crazy going on. But yeah, that's it. And then of course for the demo video, I did add some post-processing. So I'm going to go ahead and add the fat rack that I had from earlier onto this one. So here is the sound without the fat rack. And then here it is with the swiggity swoogity fat rack. Alright, I'm going to come in here and turn on the delay. I think it sounds cooler with the delay on it. Kind of sounds like it's going through a tube when I have it set to like 20% or so. I think it's because of one of the effects that I have on, or maybe some sort of parallel processing thing. And actually I'm going to come back in here and turn down the noise a little bit to around like, let's see, maybe -17. Just going to leave it at 15. I like the way that sounds. And of course you can do your own post-processing or add your own fat rack. This is all just like saturation and OTT and whatnot inside of multipass. Kind of want to try it with the drums over it. Let's see what this is going to sound like. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and release this preset for free on my blog post. I am going to have 2 versions of this though. The first one is going to be, of course, the free version, which is just the preset that's going to be available to download for everyone. And then the second version is going to be for the people who are subscribed to my Sound Squad subscribers. They'll have access to the project file, the drums that I made in here, and the fat rack as well. So if you want to use it for your own production or just kind of see what I did here. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Adios.